Okay, welcome to another episode of the Chakra podcast. And today I'm joined by my lovely guest, Shannon Swanson. Hi, Shannon.
Hi, how are you? So good to be here.
Thank you. Thanks so much for coming. Shannon was one of those people that when I found her, the energetic resonance of like, yes, this person was really, really strong. I don't get that with everybody, but I did with you. So I'm excited to chat with you. Shannon is a therapist and a health coach. But I feel like, I feel like we're going to have an interesting and juicy conversation because tell me, first of all, let's just talk a little bit about your journey and, kind of how you got to where you are today. And because I know you started more in the health arena, didn't you?
Yes, well, I started, I will try to make this as succinct as possible. It's been quite a journey. So I started way back when working in the juvenile justice system here in Oregon and I got an associate's degree in criminal justice and had to do this mandatory internship because I really sure wasn't still what I wanted to do. Ended up working in juvenile detention and working with kids, and I absolutely loved it. So then I was focused. So did that for a little while, and then ended up getting my master's in social work because I wanted to continue my work. Um, and be a therapist. And then I started working with little kids and worked at an agency here for 20 years. And in that, I was a therapist in something called psychiatric day treatment, where kids are pulled from schools and they're placed in our day treatment programs for just the day, where they receive all kinds of therapeutic support in a therapeutic milieu, and ended up going into management. And around the time I was kind of in the last 7 years I was there for about 20 years. I started having issues with my hormones, going through perimenopause and having a lot of symptoms, and went to the doctor, got checked out, got diagnosed with hypothyroidism.
Oh, yeah.
And with that, was told, which was strange to me, it's still strange to this day, that my thyroid was wonky, but there was absolutely no explanation as to why my thyroid was why I was having these issues. Fast forward, I ended up healing myself through natural means. And then that's when I decided to become a health coach, because I really was so inspired to shout it from the rooftops that there are other alternatives to medication. I'm not saying medication is the worst way to go, but I remember thinking, if I take this medication without really diving into the root cause and finding out why, because I believe we have the power to heal our own bodies,
Yeah.
that I would be on this medication for the rest of my life. And so I'm like, I'm going to try this first. And it worked. And so I changed my diet. I started taking supplements, learned all about the gut, which is really the key to everything, and started my health coaching practice. And then over the course, then COVID hit. And I would say since around 2019, and what I'm hearing now, so I'm kind of more on the spiritual side of things now. It's kind of where I've moved to. So I think a lot of people probably listening to this, I'm guessing, if they're drawn to you, which is, I think there are no accidents, that a lot of people have experienced a lot of upheaval in their lives. So massive changes, changing careers, waking up to their lives and going, wait a second, how did I get here? I don't want to be in this relationship anymore. This career no longer resonates. I'm losing friends. What's happening to me? And so I ended up having a spiritual awakening in 2021. And by that time had left my career, my job, became estranged from my family, realizing it was really toxic, and separated from that. Ended up separating from my husband and realizing that I was in denial, that it wasn't working. And just everything started to kind of fall apart.
Wow.
And then in looking at my business, I was no longer resonating with doing hormone, because I got a specialization in hormone health. And I'm like, I don't want to talk about this anymore. It doesn't resonate. I'm not attached to it. I don't want to do it. And
Mm.
so I started thinking, what is the common thread? Because I know that, because I kept thinking back to being a therapist and what was my real joy and my sole purpose. And the common thread has been teaching people to believe in themselves, like to really remember who you are. Who are you at the end of the day? You're not your defense mechanisms, you're not your traumas, you're not your wounds, you're something bigger, and you're more powerful. You have the power to heal yourself. You have the power to live the life you want to live. And with women in particular, who were taught to be good girls and live by the rules, and go to school and buy the house and meet the guy in the white picket fence, and some of us are like, that's not really what makes us happy.
Yeah.
And so it's really helping women realize that and come into their full truth unapologetically, and remember really at the end of the day who they are. That's kind of how, and that here I am.
Mic drop. Yes. Okay, I mean, there's so much to unpack there and so much interesting stuff, because I feel like I could really dive deep into the interesting stuff about a hormones thing. And it's interesting because I had hypothyroidism. They call it Graves' disease. Is that right?
Yeah,
Overactive
yeah,
thyroid. I had
yeah.
that shortly after giving birth to my second child.
Very
And
common.
I was not remotely awake, alive to my holistic kind of self, and so I took the medication. Luckily for me, it worked. I came off it, so happy days, and I've not gone back.
Yeah.
But now I'm more in that energetic spiritual field. I now understand that thyroid issues are very A, hormonal, and B, really belong pretty much majorly to women. And why would that be? I wonder. Is it something to do with our throat chakra energy and being suppressed?
Absolutely. Yes. I love it. I love it.
Is it something about not being
It's
heard?
so true.
Yeah.
Yes. And for a lot of women, when I've with the thyroid, because I did a lot of stuff around that, and it's really true that, women who have tried the medications. I've read in so many Facebook groups, I've tried the medications, I've changed my diet, I've done this, and nothing's working. And really, at the end of the day, for a lot of women, stress is also a huge culprit, but it's also not realizing that the throat chakra is blocked. You're not speaking your truth. And again, everything is energy. We're made of energy. Energy flows through us. Emotions are energy. Everything is energy, and everything impacts our chakras. And I think we're in an unprecedented time with ascension and all that's going on, that people are
Yes.
starting to wake up to this and
Big
realizing who
time.
they
Big
are.
time.
It's so exciting. So
Isn't it?
exciting.
I'm literally just get chills when you said that, because I'm
Uh-huh.
so feeling that at the moment. I really am. And I think the more people awaken to this and just start talking about it, just every time they meet with their girlfriends or whatever, instead of saying, oh, how's the kids and how's the husband? It's like, no, how are you? How's your health? How are you feeling? What's your
Yes.
energy like? Like, come on, let's get deep into this stuff, because that's the stuff of life. Those are the kind of conversations that give us the energy to make changes and to begin to understand what we're doing with our lives. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So the hormone imbalance is something that we could really get into. However, I feel like I want to get into your current work that you do as so you are helping people move through, I don't know what your terminology would be, get over, move through, move past trauma, anxiety, fear, all of these things that seem to be kind of programmed into women in a way. And
Yes.
you
Yes.
yourself have found freedom from not only, your career, you've done it all. Like most of us, like, well, my career's good, but my relationship's crap, or, vice versa, but you've gone there. You went all the way, everything. So
I did.
you did. And
I did.
kudos to you for doing that. I was talking to somebody the other day who was saying, I said, they changed their entire life. And I said, God, that must take such courage to change your life like that. And he said, no, what it was is that it took me not being able to bear being in that state anymore, like not being able to stay.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
yeah, talk me through the kind of work that you're doing now in terms of this helping people to find that freedom.
Well, I think that, in my work, I'm combining my skills as a therapist with health coaching, with my own awakening and my own experience, and my life completely falling apart and literally completely being turned upside down. And so, really wanting to, I guess the word that comes to mind is normalize the experience. That
Mm.
um, when it comes to trauma, most people think of something catastrophic that has to happen in order to have trauma in your life. And and I did this too. I was a therapist and was completely, literally in denial of my own childhood and what really happened and the emotional abuse and what I experienced. And so, because we're always thinking, and I did it too, oh, that person, oh, I don't have any trauma, that person does because of this gigantic, horrible thing that happened, but not really realizing that we have something called complex trauma, which is little things that happen over childhood and over our adulthood that compound over time. And just these like micro rejections. I heard someone recently talk about it this way. And it's like these constant micro rejections over time that compound, that kind of chip away at us. And we don't really realize it and see it. But I think the work I really want to do with women in particular is normalize our humanness. And that I feel like we live in a world where, particularly for women, it's been this whole expectation to be perfect, to be everything to everyone, put everyone first, and we always go last. And it's selfish to put ourselves first and to go after what we desire. It's selfish if we choose not to have children. I mean, there's so much there, these expectations, and to really help women try to look at how that's impacted their lives and not feel guilty for putting themselves first, and try to shed a lot of that. And also at the same time, bring awareness to what's holding them back and what it's attached to, and normalize that it's okay to be human. It's okay to not want what everybody else expects you to be, to not want to be in a relationship anymore. So for example, there's still to this day so much guilt and shame around divorce, and my relationship failed, and oh, there's something wrong with me because this failed, where I look at it as it's just not an energetic match anymore.
Yeah.
It's not good or bad. It just is. It's just no longer an energetic match. It was a soul contract. It's been fulfilled. You learned what you needed to learn from each other. And now you're moving on to the next person who's going to come into your life. And who knows what that will bring. But it's really just normalizing this for women, and to not feel so much shame if all of these things are happening in your life and you want something more for yourself, because you deserve it. You're here to live your life, not for everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's when I was looking at your website, which is fantastic. It's really inspiring, and I recommend that everybody go and check out Shannon's website. The link will be in the in the show notes and so on. But you have that thing there, like, you're not here just to exist, like, who, if you sick of like looking after the kids, making dinner, falling on the sofa in front of Netflix and then going to bed and not having sex, that's not an existence that anybody is choosing. So if that is your existence, what is it that you, and I love that, because I feel that really, it's so real. I mean, this so resonates with, resonated with me. I went and did your quiz as well.
Oh, I love it.
I did your quiz, so I'll be getting your emails and so on. But my result was a lack of self-trust. And I was like, yeah, little Miss People Pleaser. Yeah, all of that. So, it's, but so, I mean, and the reason why I say that is because I want to, tell people, like, even though I'm talking about this stuff, even though I know all of this stuff, I know that the traumas and the things that we go through and the pressures that society puts on us are literally, all they are just stories that we are telling ourselves. Even the expectations of others is just a story that we're telling ourselves. Even though I know all of this in my heart of hearts, that doesn't stop those things from bubbling up. And which is why it's so important to have a tribe, a support network around you to keep reinforcing, keep reminding yourself, keep educating, keep listening to stuff, keep reading stuff, and talking to gorgeous people like you. And but I think that is something that we're so common in the female existence, and especially those of us who are at the perimenopause, menopause kind of stage in our lives, because you get to that stage and you go, okay, so I don't have to look after the kids anymore, or I'm not going to have any kids anymore. That's done. And here I am, looking at this slightly kind of aging person in the mirror, going, okay, so I'm not stopping traffic anymore. And my husband certainly isn't stopping traffic anymore. It's like, where do we want to be? What is the priority in our lives? So how do you help people find that kind of purpose, or that, how to, when you have that realization, you want to shift something, how do you thrive? How do you come out the other side strong? How do you I know it's so many different moving parts, but
I think, you really hit on it earlier when you were mentioning that other person and what they said. And it's true. It's when you are finally done with, you finally get to a point, because, I said this recently, I think I did a reel about it on Instagram, where one of the big common lies, I think, in the coaching industry is all of this hype around, you'll see people say, oh, the 2 steps to change, or download my magic 2 steps or 5 steps to getting started to lose weight, or change your diet, or change your life, or whatever. And I'm thinking, when I've sat and thought about it, I'm like, when people have asked me, how do you start? And there really is no magic answer, because it's really different for every single person. And it really starts with when you yourself are finally done with whatever's happening. And a lot of that change comes from being in so much pain and being so sick of it. You just have to get to the point where you're so sick and tired that you're like, okay, what do I need to do? And you just do it, whatever that is. And it can be a big step for some people. People just go completely full bore and just make huge changes in their lives. Some people, it's one step at a time. There's no right or wrong answer. It's different for everyone. But it really starts when you are finally done. And that's what happened with me, is I just finally woke up, but I went through a really hard time. So for me, it was my spiritual awakening and being in a lot of pain. But what I created out of all of this was my membership, where I really just dug deep with combining all of my skill sets as a therapist and a coach and my own personal experience. And like, okay, where does this start? It starts with awareness. So really getting aware of, what are the emotions I'm feeling? What is triggering me in my life? Because I think that's what's happening in the world, is a lot of people, there's so much fear, and there's a lot of people being triggered. And so it's understanding, what are my emotions? What do they mean? Where am I avoiding them? And just really becoming aware of, what emotions keep coming up for me? What are they connected to? Are they connected to something in your past? So one common issue for a lot of people is abandonment. I know that's true for me. So really, because we're taught to, with emotions, that there's good and bad emotions, and the good ones, especially for women, the good ones are what good girls feel like and should only express. And anger and frustration and annoyance, oh, nope, 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 you're not supposed to feel those things, brush them away, turn away from those, avoid, avoid, avoid. When really and that causes so many issues, because then we stuff everything. And so it's really understanding and just shifting. I think my biggest piece that I want to help women with is just shift their perspective to be an objective observer of their own experience and emotions, not label it, not judge it, just sit with it and see what it's, and start to really, really get curious. What is this about for me? If it keeps, is it coming up a lot in my life? Is there a pattern to this? Is it connected to thoughts or behaviors or choices I've made in my life? And when you can become this objective observer and really pull yourself out of it and just be curious about yourself, just love yourself and look at yourself and not judge it and go, oh, that part of me is really bad. And oh, this person said that about me, so that must be true. No, 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 no. Just get curious, become kind of a detective of yourself, and you discover so many things about you. And it's so freeing when you can look at yourself without all that judgment, So that's really where I start with people.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds like, as you know, I work with the chakras. And so for me, it's that self-discovery is by going through the chakras, is by understanding each, because they encompass every aspect of your self, energetic, physical, emotional, whatever, plus all the crap that you've told yourself over the years, stored in various different places. So doing detective work is absolutely where it's at. Self-awareness. I mean, bigger awareness in the bigger picture, but self-awareness is where it has to start for sure. And this sort of holistic scent way of healing is, I love the fact that you've got the health aspect and the sort of energetic, emotional, if you like, aspect of it, which is really good, because I think combining those together, and especially at this time when hormones, I mean, hormones run riot in us, whatever age we are as women, I don't think there's a peaceful time for hormones until
I
less
know.
than 7 or less. I think wherever you are in your hormone journey, it's always an adventure. It's always
Yeah.
something. No. Um,
Yes.
so what was I going to get to? Yes. So I wanted to just ask you, because I know this is sort of maybe part of your past work, but there's something that I'm really interested in, and it's the impact of your gut health on your emotional health. Is there a connection? Because I keep reading that there is this kind of connection to gut health, mental health, therefore emotional health.
Yes. Yes. And I think, as a therapist, it's always been interesting to me. And even back when I was still at my agency, and it really drove me crazy, and especially in the field of mental health, that, well, in both physical health and mental health, but it's like the system cut us off at the neck. And mental health only deals with whatever's going on in the mind, and
Yeah.
physical health only deals with everything, physical from the neck down, when they're totally connected. So they've, done research where we now know that we have three brains. We have the brain, the heart is a brain, and the gut is a brain, and they're all connected by the vagus nerve that runs down your body. And it's neurological and electrical and energetic, and it's all connected. And so, you know, who was it who said, I can't think of his name, starts with an H off the top of my head, who said that, the father of medicine, who said, all of your health starts in the gut. It starts and ends in the gut. I mean, that was thousands and thousands of years ago. And so it's really true. And when I was working at my agency, like I was saying, is I really wanted to look into food and how it's absolutely connected to behavior in children. We're surrounded by so much toxicity. It's in our food, it's in the air, it's in our water, it's in our products that we buy, that we slather on ourselves. It's literally, we're inundated, and you can't now, unfortunately, in this day and age, totally escape it, but you can do things to reduce your exposure. But our bodies are just overloaded with all of this, and it absolutely affects our mental health. It affects our emotions. It affects everything. And it's really looking at the mind body connection and how it's all intertwined, and how stress is a big piece of it, and energy is a big piece of it, and our emotions. So, when we talk about trauma and energy, if we don't allow that energy to move through the body by looking at it and, transmuting it, it stays stuck literally in our cells and makes us literally sick. It's dis-ease. And so I think that whenever anyone's looking to heal, if you're looking at something physical, it's not just physical. You have to look at the other aspects of your life. And the last thing I'll say on that is, when I was in school to become a health coach, the one thing, and I went to the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, and what was huge in their teaching was, yes, you can teach someone that, yeah, everyone knows that they should eat kale, eat their greens, eat their vegetables to be healthy. But at the end of the day, food is secondary to your issue. It's literally 4 areas of your life. It's your career, your relationships, your activity level, and your spiritual relationship, whatever that looks like to you. Because when those 4 areas are out of balance, then food is where it's going to suffer, because we tend to eat our emotions. We eat when we're stressed, so it's the mind body connection is huge.
I saw something the other day which really fascinated me, and I've been with people, healers, energy workers, whatever, who do muscle testing. Have you done muscle testing? That thing where you kind of, your body will give you a yes or no answer. And I saw this, and I thought this was fascinating, that to do muscle testing, if you like, with food, So you basically, you take something you know is good for you. So take a bowl of kale, for example, even if you don't really like it, but you know it's good for you. And you hold it close to your body. You're standing up on 2 feet, nice and strong, and you're sort of steady. And you close your eyes and and your body will either lean forward into it, that's a yes, or it will lean back away from it, that's a no.
Yes, I've heard of this.
Yeah. And so you take something that's good for you, you know is good for you, like an apple, for example. You hold it close to your heart and your body will probably lean into it. Then you take something like a bowl of candy, sweets, whatever, ice cream, and you hold it close to you and your body will rock backwards. Then, having felt that definite yes and no, you can use that with anything. So like pick up a bowl of rice, maybe rice is not your thing, or eggs, some people, they work for, because it's so individual. And if you actually trust your energy to give you that message, I thought that was really interesting. And I'm going to be in my kitchen swaying like a madwoman, going, is this right for me, or is this not right for me?
I think I remember us having a module about that in our coaching training, and I had totally kind of forgotten about that. But yes, you reminded me. Yes, it's so true, and it really kind of speaks to, real quick, with the experiments they've done with water and plants. Yeah. Where when you speak to the water in a positive way and give it positive energy and love and gratitude, how the crystals change depending upon whether you're speaking in that way versus very like, I hate you, you're bad, water, or whatever you're saying, but the crystals literally change.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah. So everything, at the end of the day, everything is energy, everything.
Yeah, exactly. Everything is energy. And one of the most energetic things within our lives, the thing that holds the most energy, I think, is relationships.
Yes.
Big relationships. So your partner, your relationships. And so I want to talk to you a bit about that, because obviously I know that you had a pretty traumatic divorce, and I know that you're, I hope you're okay talking about it. I imagine you
absolutely.
are. Yeah. So I think I want to ask this question on behalf of people who are in a situation where they're not satisfied, their things aren't great, but they're kind of surviving. It's kind of okay. And it's like, well, I don't know if it'd be worse to be on my own or not. I think if it's clear that you need to leave, then that's clear. And that's one, I think I'm wanting to ask you about how to make that judgment call, how to actually leave, and then how to come out the other side with your sanity intact, I suppose. I guess I wanted to talk to you about your experience and how you dealt with it.
Well, if I was going to be really honest, what I ended up discovering when I was making the decision was I had wanted this for a really, really long time, and probably he did too. But I think both of us were in denial, and we're still friends. Like, it was a very amicable separation. 100%, because we both still really respect and care about each other. So I think for me, if I was going to be really honest, I wanted it 5 years in. But I just, but back then, like we all tell ourselves, is like, nope, I committed to this. I took vows. This is what I chose. Why would I? Oh, it'll get better. It'll get better. It'll get better. But it's always like, what I always think of is like, you just know deep down. We always say we didn't know, but we do. I think we really do. And looking back, and it's always easy to look back, of course, but when I do look back, I wanted this for a really, really long time. And I think often what happens is that, like what happened with me, is we get very caught up in life. We live in a world of so many distractions. And I was distracted by my career, and that was my focus. And going into management and creating programs and everything I did for the agency, and working 10, 12-hour days, and then having my daughter. And then our focus was on our daughter and raising my daughter. So I was the mom in my career. And then every day kind of bled into the next. I go to work, I come home, I make, the thing. And it was meeting someone who I felt this unbelievable connection to. Nothing happened. It was very appropriate, but it woke me up, and it did catalyze my spiritual awakening. And it just, I don't know, it took months for me to kind of realize what was happening, but it woke me up to looking at my life and going, wow, if I feel this for a person that I've never physically met, this is really how I want to. It kind of like, it was like being woken up to feelings again I hadn't felt in a while, and then it forced me to look at my relationship and go, whoa, I really need to look at this. Is this repairable? Is this what I really want? And then I kept coming back to the same answer. No, it isn't. And what's interesting, you know, that I've realized and read about when it comes to divorce and separation for women in particular, is that we make the decision way before we ever go. And it takes time. So we decide, and then what we tend to do is stay in the relationship while we grieve it.
Okay.
And while we're in our minds, we're ending it. And then when we decide to say to our partner, I'm done, we're already done. Like there's nothing, we're done.
Yeah.
Whereas men, I think it's more of a sudden choice.
Mm.
So for me, it was really getting real with myself. And it was, I will tell you, it was very terrifying, you know, that I'd been in this relationship for 24 years. It's been a long time since I've been on my own. How is it going to affect my daughter? And one interesting thing my daughter did say to me, we were on a walk one day and she said, I don't think she'll care if I share this, but she said, I wish you would have done this a long time ago.
Mm.
And so I think that's important to say, because we often believe that staying in it is best for the children, when really our children want us to be happy. They want to see what a healthy relationship looks like, to see us be healthy. And particularly, I think for women with who have daughters, is to role model choosing ourselves and
Yes.
doing it in a way that has integrity, and not, and it always, and I'm not saying or judging anyone who have really struggle and have a very horrible experience with separation, because my heart goes out to you. I'm one of the lucky ones, because you can't control what another person does when you're trying to end something, of course. But it was terrifying, and it was just me literally trusting my gut, trusting what I was, God, and praying and literally and saying, guide me. And I just knew. And so I made the choice. And I did have times where I was like, God, did I make the right choice? But every time, you know, we've subsequently gone on vacations together, and he's not a bad person by any stretch. He's a very good person. But every time we're together, I realize I made the right choice, because we're just not we're just not a match. And that's really all that it comes down to. I mean, you can point fingers all day long, because we all come to relationship with all of our traumas and our wounds and our stuff that we project onto each other. We all do it. We're all guilty.
Yeah.
And you know, we could talk all day about the psychology behind it, but really at the end of the day, it was just making the decision that I knew I had to make.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the same, you could apply that very same story, if you like, almost to any other big change, in terms of, like, you know, moving to a different country, leaving your career, you know, making that break with a toxic family member, you know, all of those, that applies to any change. So I just want to put that out there for people who just think that we're, you know, banging on about marriage and you're not married or whatever, but it can, that exact same process goes through any big change, I think. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
and this idea that you know, this idea that you are the same person age 50 that you were when you were 25 is
Exactly
absurd, frankly. I think,
it is.
you know, we grow so much. You know, at 25 you're still in your, you know, you're a baby. As
Yes, you
a
are.
50 something year old, you know, I feel qualified to say that, because I can look back on myself at that age and go, I was a baby. I didn't know myself at all. I was so naive. You know, it's interesting, because I look back on it now and I think, God, I had already started my spiritual journey. You know, I'd already fallen in love with yoga. I knew that that was my path. I didn't realize what it was going to lead to. I didn't realize that it was going to lead to, you know, a full spiritual awakening and all the magic that I now have in my life because of it. All that sort of solace, I guess, that it gives you when you feel that connection with energy and with the truth of energy. And I don't think that that girl, how can she be the same as a grown ass woman who's been through the fullness of life, lived their best years, giving them to your kids and to your husband and your house and your dishwasher and your the school run and all of that stuff, or the career and the day-to-day, I've got to climb this ladder, I've got to beat the men, I've got to prove myself, I've got to look amazing, like I just stepped out of a magazine every day.
Seriously. Yeah. The expectations are ridiculous. I mean, they really are. And I think, one thing you touched on that was a big, huge push for me to make the decision to go was I didn't want to live with regret. Because I just knew, and that's the thing, we can run, but we can't hide from our truth. I mean, at the end of the day, and I really believe that the universe is going to keep knocking at the door, and it's going to get louder and louder until you pay attention. And I think that's what's going to be happening more and more with people because of this unprecedented time we're in of ascension. And we're all being called to live more in our authenticity and follow our real true calling and our soul path. And that's what I believe happened. And around this time that I was still kind of on the fence, this woman I had been spoken to, I think I went to a tarot reader, and she said to me something that really struck me. And she said, she said, I used to be a hairdresser, and this woman came in one day and she was in her 80s. And I remember we were talking about my marriage at the time, and when I was still married. And she said to me, are you happy? And she said, no, I'm really not. And she said, well, don't do what I did. She goes, don't stay. She said, I had a chance to leave years and years and years ago, and I chose not to. And I was miserable the entire time. And now I'm 85 and there you go, it's over. And I thought, oh, wow, I need to really be honest with this, and I don't want to have any regrets. And I know deep down this is not right for me anymore. It's not right for either one of us.
Yeah.
And the other piece is allowing us to each be free to find the person who is our match. And the longer that we both stay in this, we're not going to be able to find that. And I want that. I don't want to exist. I want to live. I don't have a lot of time left.
No, I hear that. I'm totally with you. It is all about that. And I think connecting with your awareness, connecting with energy, connecting with yourself, as you said right at the beginning, is getting to really understand your emotions, like sitting with them, understanding what is going on for you, and trying to understand what the stories are that you're telling yourself that are keeping you in the situation that isn't letting you be happy, isn't letting you live your fullest life. That is all stuff that takes a little bit of time, and it takes a little bit of hand holding, which is why people like you, and I guess to me as well, come into this. Because if you are going through that transition, if you want to kind of get more out of your life, to understand why the hell you're here and what you're here to do, and how to live, this life, you don't take your stuff with you. You take your spirit is here to learn lessons. And do you want your spirit to leave, this the energy that's the only thing that you're going to take with you, if you like.
And I think that that's one of my big pieces that I want to teach people, is really changing the perspective, is breaking out of the programming. We're so programmed by all these rules and expectations, the way we're supposed to, the shoulds, and live. And it's really getting down to the bare basics of, I am a soul in a human body here on this planet to learn. And I'm going to learn through different people. They're going to come in and out of my life, and they're either going to be teachers, or I'm going to teach them, or both. And if we can just shift our perspective and just forgive ourselves and give ourselves a little bit of grace, that if relationships end, it's okay.
Mm.
It's no one's fault. There's no blame necessarily, because we all are flawed. We all screw up. We all do our things to each other. There's no
Mm.
scorekeeping. It is what it is. And if we can just shift our perspective and forgive ourselves that we're just human doing the best that we can, because the other thing to remember is that you can't judge yourself for past decisions, because you made those decisions based on what you knew at the time.
Mm.
And you can't judge it now because you know more than you did back then. So you just need to
Exactly.
let that go.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. No, and if you know, whatever it is that your heart desires, that's the other thing. I was doing I did a yoga day the other day about finding your sankalpa, that truest heart's desire that is connected to the higher self, that vow to the self. And I want people to, yeah, really, you know, that's something that I think is really important, is that seeking, you know, what's more exciting than hide and seek? Look for that hidden truth of what of what it,
Absolutely.
yeah. So listen, Shannon, thank you. Where can people find you? Your website is just shannonswanson.com, isn't it?
Yes, ShannonESwanson.com. There's an E in there because there's other Shannon Swansons. And they can find me on Instagram at Shannon E. Swanson. And where else can you find me? I think those, you can also find me on TikTok at E. Swanson. I think too is Shannon Swanson there. And yeah, those are the biggest things, because on Instagram I do daily tips in my stories. And that's where I share a lot of these things, in addition to, of course, my website at ShannonESwanson.com. So yeah. And I have a link I'm going to give to you if people are interested, a bundle that I have with 30 days of journal prompts and things like that, which is kind of a combined bundle of a mind body kind of way. How do I want to say this? Is like to become more connected and aware of the mind body connection, I guess. I'm not choosing my words very well, but there's 30 days of journal prompts. There's 5 tips around worthiness, and also a guide around how to become more aware of your body and what it's telling you, particularly around emotions. And so I can give that to you and send that to you afterwards.
My God, we could do a whole nother hour on just what the body has to tell us about ourselves. Oh gosh, Shannon, it's just been an absolute joy talking to you. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I love this conversation. I could talk about it all day. It's been so much fun. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So welcome.